Okay, so we have a quorum, so we're ready to get started. Just a reminder that we're being recorded by DCTV. Microphones are on, so mind your side conversations. And we'll start with, we have minutes from September's meeting, is that correct?
Yes.
That were, excuse me, sent out to us. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? I think I had one. Just one? I think it was one minor thing. I think it was only, I think it was only in the North Library discussion. So where it reads, Mr. Silva stated that they don't necessarily have a need or the space for the building, but we do have land. I think my recollection is he said they did not have a need for the building, but they do have land.
Okay.
So I think it's just striking the words "or the space." I think that's actually it. Any other additions or corrections?
No.
All right, if I could have a motion to approve the minutes with that one correction.
So moved.
All right, a second.
Second?
Second.
All right. Second, third, and fourth. All in favor to approve the minutes with the
Aye.
correction?
Aye.
Any
Abstain.
opposed? And one abstention, which is John. And we have some invoices. I did want to ask, will the exec committee minutes be posted?
Ooh.
Those should be
Yes, those
posted.
should be,
Yeah,
yes.
okay, thank you. Okay, we have a few invoices. This one is, I think this is from,
Those are Anthony's attorney, and they're all together.
okay,
Okay.
and these are from town council,
Yeah.
total of $605. And we have,
Various months,
these are for the,
Higgins.
now these, like the November one did not get, I mean, oh, this is, I see, this was in late September.
And it's what's highlighted is the amount.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the breakdown is provided. Okay, I'll pass that along, we take a look at that. We also have an invoice from the Dartmouth Cultural Center in the amount of $1,940. And this is for the design and other related architectural services, it looks like. We have a voucher, I'll save the big one for last. We have a voucher for the Dartmouth Dog Park in the amount of $4,088.75, which is from GAF Engineering. Specifications writing, checking plans and calculations, preparing a site plan. So a lot of the specifications and initial design work.
That was the advertisement.
Oh, okay, great.
I just cited them out.
Yep, then we have $170, and this is for Dartmouth Week, and this is the advertisement for the public hearing.
It doesn't have to be signed by Bill, because it's already been paid.
Okay, and this has been paid because we owed it to him. Great, so this is all set. This
Yes.
was approved.
Yeah, thank you.
And then we have a voucher for the Mendes Montero house, and that is in the amount of $387,468.22. And there's a good deal of detail that you can look at, but essentially, it is the first requisition for the construction contract. And it includes the general conditions and things like that, permits, fees, and also you'll see a number of expenses towards things like flooring, drywall, et cetera, et cetera. I did ask Connie about those charges since they're just
Right.
starting construction, but she said that those are the contractor's expenses for ordering materials and lining up materials, which I guess makes sense. You don't want to be ordering the materials and then finding out it's going to take 6 months to get to you or 4 months to get to you. So their initial payment for a variety of materials for the project.
My son is, got a very good job. He's construction in Colorado, and that's what he does too. He orders ahead of time, because then it
Yeah.
doesn't hold the job up.
Yep.
And the costs were going up and up, so they just order it and store it.
Yep. And then Susan, when you're ready, we can introduce motions. You're sitting in the hot seat.
I know. I realized that after I sat here. Is it a motion to pay, or it's a motion to,
Yes, motion is to approve payment. Yep.
can I start them coming back, or do I wait for them all?
What's that?
Can I start them coming back, or do I wait for them all?
Oh, no, you can just start,
Okay.
start motions on them. Yeah.
I motion to approve payment to GAF Engineering for $4,088.75 for the Dartmouth Dog Park project.
A second?
Second.
Any questions, discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? That's unanimous.
Do we sign?
You scribbled something on the bottom. You heard that.
I motion to approve a payment for the Dartmouth Cultural Center for $1,940.
Second on that?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No, that's unanimous.
I motion to approve a payment to Anthony Savastano for $605.
And a second? Any questions, discussion? Yeah, John?
We typically ask for a breakdown, and I didn't see any. There was 2 or 3 invoices there. There was a breakdown of a previous invoice that looked like, I don't know if that was included. I was a,
They all have, the only one that doesn't have the breakdown is the first one, the $55 one, so that's like for 2 hours.
what's
The
that?
other one, the first one, the $55 invoice, that one did not have, a breakdown, so it's like 2 hours. The other 2 do have the breakdowns there. No?
I couldn't see it.
I did have a question.
And $55 is a charge.
That was my fault. I neglected to ask him for that, so I take responsibility for that one.
I did have a question. I know he got a raise. Is he charging, what does he charge us an hour now? Did he go up on our fee? Because I know, didn't he get a
I'm sure
raise?
he's,
Those are
I'm sure he's charging us whatever the
I can
town.
find that out.
Raise with the town.
Okay.
You know, we've asked for this a number of times.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
It's not your fault. I mean,
Right,
they
right.
should be coming through with that information on it. I don't know
Yeah.
why we gotta continue to ask, so,
No, that's a good point.
you know,
Susan, do you see the other two? Or
pretty
the,
simple request.
Yeah, I thought they did.
usually it's an email from
Yeah,
Mr.
he did send us an
Savastano.
email, a separate email for the August invoice. and
Yeah.
I'm not sure if the August invoice
Oh, for the,
is part of that. I don't know if you folks had the same question last month regarding an August invoice?
yeah, there's just a breakdown for, because there's a September, oh, there's a September. So it's this May invoice that there's no breakdown for.
$5, right?
Yeah. Do you want me to pass it back?
Yeah, pass it, John, to just confirm, because that is, we have agreed not to pay without a breakdown of the time.
So here's one for 55.
Right, that one does not have the
Does
breakdown.
not have a
Right.
breakdown.
The breakdown's on the next page
On the
after.
next page.
No.
No, go one more page.
That's the 190.
Right, that's the 192.
So breakdown is for 8/1, 8/6, 8/7, so that invoice, this is June 7th. So no, there is no breakdown.
Yeah.
For the first one.
The first one, there's
Bill
no.
dated June 7th, right, that I'm seeing. And then
192.50, is that what it says?
the 192.50
Yeah, underneath
is
that.
dated 9/24.
That should be the breakdown.
No. No. The breakdown he gave us, please find my invoice for August time. The breakdown is as follows. Again, yeah. 0.5, 0.2, no charge. What category does that fall under? Oh, here's another one, I'm sorry. There is 2. Attached to my, again, August again. So he gave us 2 breakdowns for his August time. There's gotta be more clarity. We shouldn't have this.
Generally, what he does is, his email lines up his time with the charges, so they're in
Right.
that order or whatever.
You know, he breaks it down. For an example, we got an invoice for, on November 3rd. Doesn't say what month this is for. I'm assuming it's for October.
Is he
Oh,
referencing?
no, September 11th, September 12th, September 13th.
In my email.
So here we go, September 11th, September 12th, September 13th. He does break this one down.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
81, okay, he does break this one down. I'm sorry. The $55 one is not broken down.
Okay. So you want to do the,
The math?
do you want to do the math on the two that provide the backup?
The total is $605, I have an email.
We're gonna,
Take it.
my sense is what we're gonna do is approve the ones that have the backup, and then the one without, I would propose a separate motion to approve it, subject to receipt of the backup documentation on time spent.
It's 550 for the two.
Okay. So if you want to make a motion on the, and I don't know if they have invoice numbers on those, they're separate?
Yep.
Okay,
Invoice 210,
Yep.
2010, and 2034.
okay, for a total of $550.
Yeah. And then the $55 one.
Well, let's do the first motion of what the committee feels they can move forward with, which is those 2110 and 2113 invoices.
Motion to approve 2010 and 2034 for a total of 550.
Second.
And any further discussion? Thank you for looking at that, John. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No?
So we don't want to sign that, we'll sign that.
Right. And then, if we have a motion, the committee would entertain a motion to approve the payment of the outstanding invoice of $55, subject to first receiving the backup documentation of time spent.
So moved.
And a second on that?
Second.
Further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. And Michelle, just, again, better to catch them if they're coming in, if
So
you don't see it, just like,
Tomorrow, I can just. move
give him a
forward.
holler and say,
Yeah, yeah. As soon as I
yeah,
get
and
that
just send me what he
documentation.
sent you.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It is pretty straightforward. There's nothing, I think, onerous about this request to just include your breakdown of your time.
Did you get three?
I have a motion to approve a payment for $387,468.22 for the Mendez Montero project.
Second? Okay. Any discussion?
Can you, I know you went over it, but can you remind me again what that is covering?
Yeah, so it looks like, this is now a requisition that is tied to the construction contract. So probably it might be helpful with a little bit of background to kind of know what we will be getting. So this is a big public construction contract, so there is a project manager, and then there's an architect's representative in the project. And so the contractor is invoicing to the architect's representative, and on this AIA form, Association of, I forget what the AIA is, but anyway, it's a standard form for architects.
I can't
Yeah,
remember what
yeah,
the
you're-
acronym
John's
stands for,
familiar
but
with
I've
those
seen
things.
them all the time.
American Institute of Architects, I think is what it might
Right.
be for. And so that's all kind of laid out and gets approved. And then the state, I believe, since they have a lot of money in this, they approve of it being requisitioned. I think they may, even though it's CPA funds. So it's going to cover when you see in these big contracts, general conditions, that's just the overhead of the contractor. and it's just broken out by invoices, spread across the life of the project. Things like insurance, permits, and then there's real charges that the contractors had for subs in any variety of trades and stuff. And then, as I said, in this one, I know you'll see like there's appliance charge and things like that, because the contractor is ordering materials for the project. So there are gonna be a lot of those kind of charges, even though it's just the foundation is in the ground. There's still those charges.
So who does the due diligence on these big projects to ensure that they're spending the funds the way they were intended from the CPA? Since it's a huge project, almost 5 million.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's where, what is in place is the whole public construction kind of monitoring process that's both the state and the architect. So there are these professionals whose job it is to approve, inspect. If a contractor says, I've got, 10% of this project of the carpentry is done, there's actually somebody who is responsible on behalf of Partners in Housing to agree that, that's a fair, that's a fair charge for 10% of the carpentry, et cetera. But that's a great question, because it's beyond ours and really even beyond the town's, I think, capacity to do that, because you really have to monitor the project some people are monitoring on a daily basis, but at least weekly, on something like that.
Under the AIA form, there's liability that goes along with that if you falsify those records
Okay.
versus, the smaller, I mean, it's a good point, the smaller projects, we've got no checks and balances when we pay out $5,000 to
Yeah,
dog park.
yeah, the only checks and
We're not going
balances,
out there and inspecting,
Right.
and, oh yeah,
Right.
is that $5,000 worth of work done? In these instances, if there's falsifications going on with that AI document, someone is in some serious trouble.
I have another question, not just pertaining to this, but it's like on a project of this size. Would you have a clerk of the works also?
yeah, there is a clerk of the works.
And we don't know who that is.
I don't know, but they actually I think they mentioned the person's name
Okay.
at the groundbreaking, but yes, there's a clerk of the works,
okay.
and the clerk of the works is there every day.
Okay.
What I love about the AI documents is you get the breakdown, the percentages of completion on each, if you look at each line item, shows you when it was
Each division.
completed and what's left and what that percentage is for that particular line item.
Yep, so went to the groundbreaking, which was, a lot of people showed up at the groundbreaking for the
A lot of
project.
shovels, I saw some pictures.
Huh? What's
A lot
that?
of shovels.
Oh, man, shovels galore. Yeah.
They get to keep
Oh, they're
them,
not
John?
buying them like.
No, no, they
Not
they
paying
put those babies.
$300
They put 'em
like they
back?
were
Yeah, they
paying for
put those
Andersons
things
years
back,
ago.
But yes, if you want to know how many people are involved in these kinds of projects, you should look at the number of photographs of people with shovels in their hands. Yeah, it was impressive, but,
Totally a pile of dirt brought in for the occasion.
yeah. But very positive. Very, very positive. Just think,
So the motion still stands.
what's that?
The motion still stands.
All right, oh, heavens. And we have a second? We had the second, that was our discussion. Thank you very much. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Boy, thank you so much for that. Just related to correspondence, I did get, I sent in a memo to Mr. Savastano explaining the Smith Mills Camp proposal to have the old Smith Mills Library moved over to their property. And I framed the question that we have, which is, making sure that this is something that would not run afoul of the CPA. Smith Mills Camp is a religious organization, so we need to pay attention to that because the CPA funds, there's some real boundary issues about the use of CPA funds or religious kind of organizations or property. But then there's also the question of, like, is it a transfer of the building to be on Camp Mills land, or is it with the camp subdivided a piece of property, and so then the town would own that piece of property and the library would move across. Anyway, there's some questions like that, and so I framed the questions for town council, as well as asking that if this looked like it was problematic in how it is proposed, could the town council offer any avenue for how this might be done. It was a bit of a delay at town hall getting that over to Mr. Savastano, but he does have it now, so.
Study on that subject, I was reading the minutes and noticed that, and noticed your discussion on the, whether we can do that with a religious organization. So does that mean what we did with the Quaker Meeting House was not kosher?
No, the decision by the court came after that. And it was, I think, up in the town of Acton. And this is where some taxpayers took the town to court and saying that the renovations for the church, the historic church in Acton, which included restoring some of the stained glass
Well, we
windows.
did the same with the Quaker Meeting House.
Yeah, but that came after. But in the future, and I think I had an inquiry from, at one point there's a chapel up Smith Neck Road. If you keep going past Round Hill. And there was an inquiry from them about using CPA funds. Hi, Joe. Using CPA funds, and I kind of advised them about this limitation and sent an article to them about it, and they decided not to proceed.
Just finish up my other meeting.
It's something we just have to always kind of look at. It doesn't mean it's impossible, but you have to just be careful about where the boundaries might be. So we should hear back from town council maybe in December about their thoughts on the Smith Mills Library relocation. Okay, so this portion, we want to give some time for a public hearing. If there are any comments, contributions to be made about our 2026 needs assessment and plan. And so the way we'll do this, we'll vote ourselves, we'll have a motion to enter into the public hearing part. I will describe the basic ground rules. And then if there's any comment to receive, we will receive it, and then at the end.
Motion.
For that. So motion to enter in a public hearing.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So each year we do a plan, needs assessment and plan, which we lay out kind of what the goals, objectives, values are, strategies for CPA funds for each of our major uses. And we ask for any kind of public comment and input on those goals and objectives and strategies. So, first, let me just check. We sent out a memo to town committees, boards, organizations that have sponsored projects. Have we received any written submissions? Okay, and we had sent that out, and I think people had a little more than a month, because I think it was
Absolutely,
to get
yeah.
back to us by November 5th. And so what I would like to ask is if there's anyone present here who would like to offer some thoughts or comments on our plan, things that we should be thinking about, what's on the horizon. What? Yes, and if you come up to this microphone and introduce yourself, that's great. That makes it work for DCTV.
Thanks. My name is Robert Mahold, and I'm the incoming chair of the Historical Commission. So working with Chris Sewell over there, who you probably know. She's not able to be here tonight. I've only been in this role for, what is it, Michelle, about 3 months now? Something like that. So, I'm not fully versed and haven't been able to do a complete census of the other members about what our goals are for this year, other than the ongoing documentation of Form Bs that support Macris and the other entities that help the community members and the state of Massachusetts understand, our historical buildings, properties, legacies. So we have one of those requests that we're hoping to put forward and get approved, where we intend to survey, I think it's 23 additional properties in our sort of march across town. We've created, I think, a more defined criteria for how to do that going forward, so we can ensure that we get both South Dartmouth, North Dartmouth, a mix of some commercial buildings with residential across the whole age spectrum. And so that's something that we're working on right now, and we'll put forward in a request very soon. So I wrote to you, sir, a week or so ago, just to introduce myself, and I don't have feedback by the deadline for your 2025 plans, but I appreciated being able to be read into them and see what they are. And I look forward to working very closely with CPC and maybe attending some more of these meetings and getting some help with what our goals are as we develop those in the coming few months.
Mm-hmm. Great.
So, yeah, that's about all.
Well, certainly, I think when, you can take a look at what we have in our current plan that we attribute to the Historical Commission. And certainly, I think if there's, anything, at any point, just helping us understand if there's been any additions or changes to those kinds of goals, objectives, that's really helpful for us to be aware of.
Okay, very good. One of the things that I know that we're talking about doing is expanding our inventory documentation and potential preservation of things like stone walls, cemeteries, monuments that fall within the purview of the DHC. So I'm talking with members about this over the next coming weeks, and I'll be sure to be back in touch and let you know what our aims and goals are and how you can help out.
Great, thank you.
Okay, good. Thanks very much for your time.
Tim, not to put you on the spot, but I just did.
Be easy on him. It's been a rough night.
Yeah. Would you be able to come up here for just a moment? The question I have is just on the open space and recreation plan. It looks like we have a new approved plan now that goes from the 23 to 2030. Is that correct? I see it on the.
We did recently update the open space and rec
Okay.
plan. There was a committee that was formed that's similar committees we've done in the past. The majority of this was done through the town administrator's office this time around. We did participate in it. The the majority of the goals that were in the previous plans, I would say, held fast to this new plan, so I wouldn't expect any surprises as to what you'd see in the new plan versus kind of what we've followed over the last 20 years. Just the plan now lasts a longer period. It used to only be 7 years. These new plans now last longer if you do them in a different fashion, which I think the town took the option to do. While I am here, one thing that is on our radar moving forward, and I've talked to Judy Lund about this, and I think Judy is probably going to kind of assist me in moving this forward, is we're going to be looking to make some repairs to our historic cemeteries, the ones that are actually owned by the town. We've seen some work by a contractor that does stone restoration, and the work is satisfactory. They've done some work in one of our cemeteries for a resident that we've authorized, and they do good work. They've done a lot of work in Westport with historic stone restoration, and we have, between the Davis Cemetery and the Pine Island Cemetery, we have many, many historic stones that have fallen over the years just due to nature. And Judy approached me at town meeting, actually, regarding the possibility of try to get some historic CPC money at some point to put together a program to restore the stones in these cemeteries, because at this point the majority of the families are no longer living, most likely, to maintain these stones. Some of these stones are like that limestone or the marble. So that's something to keep on your radar. It won't be a big CPC request, but it's something we're probably going to be looking for in the next year or so. So.
The other questions or comments? Yes.
Just a comment. I didn't catch your name.
Robert.
Welcome, good luck on your
Yeah.
new role.
Thank you.
I just want to point out, I don't know how much you know about the CPC and our history, but the historic preservation is one of our
Seats.
goals or
Yeah.
subject
Yeah.
matters that historically in the town of Dartmouth has been underutilized. So it would be great to see more funds requested for historic preservation. And, I can't put all the blame on the Historic Commission or blame on the Historic Commission, because anybody can apply for those funds, but it is underutilized, and I would love to see more projects come forward for historic preservation.
I agree, and I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
Any other comments? All right, we can make a motion to close public hearing.
Motion.
Second.
Second, any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. So I have here, Tim, no, I didn't want to hold you up any longer than we needed to, so I actually have you on the agenda before we then talk about the plan. So if you could come up and give us a update on the dog park.
So the dog park project is a little different than some of the other projects that we've done. In this particular case, I'm not the lead on this project, so the administration work is being handled through the town administrator's office. The assistant town administrator is handling the admin end of it, and I'm handling the field work on this. A little different than what we've done on like the playgrounds and building repairs and so forth of that nature. So I don't have really too much information to give you, but I can kind of tell you where I know of it is at. And that is that town council currently has the bid documents and is reviewing them to go out to bid for construction. In talking with Chris Vitale before he went out on paternity leave, there was some delay in the engineering work has been done. The necessary site engineering work has been done to get the documents ready to bid. There was some delay there. That was finalized, and town council has now had it and is working through it to make it ready for bid. It was my original understanding that it would have been out to bid already, but it seems like there was some delay, and I'm not sure if it was, I don't know what the reason for that, but I do know as it stands today, it's just with town council and they're working through the bid documents. So it stands to say as soon as he is done with it, it is ready to go out to bid. And that's kind of where we are with it.
unusual. So, I mean, we've done a lot of projects with Parks and Rec.
Yep.
And you all have managed the projects, and this is on it's square on the regional park.
Yep. So it's unusual because it's been going on a long time, and Cody Haddad had this project originally while I was doing other park projects at the same time. And so as this flowed through, I was still handling playground project, construction projects. So this particular one stayed under the purview of the assistant town administrator. In addition to that, and we're going to see how this goes. In addition to that, I know in my mind, when I play this out, I know what has to happen for this to get constructed. And that is that the town, not only the park department, but DPW has to work together to make that happen. It's not going to happen any other way. That's my opinion. But we're going to wait. We're going to put it out to bid, and we'll see where things come back. But I know, in my mind, I know that's what has to happen. And the best place for this to be to make that happen is with the town administrator's office, because there has to be a joint effort with DPW to make this work. Similar to what happened many years ago when the community park was built, DPW did some of the site work. I still believe that's what has to happen to make this work, with the park department doing the amenities end, like the benches, fences, walkways, other things that are in the dog park. That's the way to make this work. I know that. But right now, I think the assistant town administrator wants to get it out there, see the results of the bid, see where everything aligns, and see who needs to pull off what parts of this project. And really, it's the best place for it to be, because at least he can have that discussion between DPW and myself.
Yeah, I don't want to dominate the questions, so.
I just have one question, okay? Because I've been thinking about this dog park way before when people were thinking about doing it. Why is it taking so long, Tim?
I think it took a long time on this because first the town went and tried to get grant money from the state, and it got rejected. Then the town went out and they tried to get grant money from a nonprofit grant company who's the founder of CVS. They have a grant program. And we went all through that program, but they specified certain high-end materials to be within the dog park. The bids came back. We didn't have enough money, and they pulled out of it because the only way we were going to actually be able to build at the time was to do it with regular materials like we would normally build a dog park with. And then we went back to have you guys to try to take some of the state match. Remember, there was a state match, and reappropriate that. And it's been with the town administrator. This is in their wheelhouse. It's not in my wheelhouse right now. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
Do you have a sense of the schedule? Let's say, when you would hope to, will put us both in the same, when we would hope to see construction start there, and is it a 6-month, a 3-month?
So back when Sean McGinnis was still here,
Yeah.
We had this discussion about when the dog park was going to go out to bid, and we disagreed on when the best construction period was. So that's why we're in this fall cycle of bidding, which is the worst time to bid. It's just not good. Spring is the worst time to do construction in Dartmouth. It's especially at the regional park because the conditions are muddy and wet. That's why if you notice when we do the playground projects, I usually fund them in the summer.
Yeah.
I do the rough work in the fall, and then we don't actually do install until the following spring to summer, because that's the way it works. Sean, at the time when Sean McGinnis was here, he thought that if we bid it to do like winter to spring projects, but I've never been successful with that bid period. So where we are today with town council has it, you get it out to bid. By the time it gets out to bid and you get the results, you're looking at sometime winter. You're not going to do anything there in the spring. You're just not going to. So you're looking at the best time to do work out there would be May through next November. So that's just the reality of the situation. By the time, and I'm not sure if how long the holdup will be. I don't know if town council could get that back to him very quickly, and you could get it out in 2 weeks. You could have bids back, so you could have. We're at the end of November. You could theoretically have bids back before Christmas. And then I probably wouldn't start construction there until May anyway. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Tim. I appreciate it. So, we will, it is unusual. I just have to,
Yeah, It's outside the park board, so.
how this is being managed.
Long time.
But it sounds like we need to continue to direct our questions towards Mr. Vitale about when's this thing going to go to bid? When's construction start? That's sound. Right?
I agree.
Gotta
Sounds
keep,
like we'll be throwing more money at it.
Delays.
It doesn't sound too encouraging.
Delay you get, the expenses go up, and it's frustrating
Yeah.
that that's not built into it. I think the town needs to do a better job at planning and scheduling and budgeting for these scenarios. If they don't think they're gonna get to construction in 2 years, then you budget for it. And I guarantee you, it wasn't budgeted for a 2-year cost increase, whatever it's been,
it's been a while, John.
And I think we
5
need to
years.
ask that
Yes.
going forward, when we get these kind of projects, and say, what's your plan, what's the target? And, what do you foresee for increases?
Yeah, it's unusual in that the other parks and rec projects go pretty well,
Because Tim's
as-
very efficient in what he does.
as
Yeah.
described or proposed.
Straightforward. He does a great job in what he does. That's what the deal is. He's conscientious.
I just don't understand why the park department didn't have the total control of this.
There's a lot of that going on.
I know, but it doesn't make, if somebody's good at what they do, then you let them do it.
Yeah. So, listen, we're fortunate to have him. He does a great job.
Right.
And it all comes in pretty close to budget when he does it.
Does a great job with the playgrounds, all the playgrounds that I've seen.
I say that, but even in other projects that we have throughout, things that we do. I mean, such as putting those signs up for the
Right,
bicycle
the
thing
bicycles,
before
yeah.
the end. I mean, but things are changing in town, I guess. I'll just leave it at that.
Well, Mr. Vitale's on paternity leave till when?
December 16th.
December 16th. So certainly on behalf of the committee, I can write to him and ask for, his best update on when the project will go out to bid. Sounds like that's a key figure or date to get a sense of. All right.
And another thing is the dog park people are just really nice people. They've got a place for their dogs now, so people are just kind of like comfortable. If it wasn't there at all, I think it'd be a different story, but people are going up there using.
Yeah, they're using it, and they still take care of
Oh, they do
the
a great
upkeep
job.
of it and
I
everything.
monitor some of the things I say online. They're phenomenal. If they opened up a business, they'd be 5-star. They do a great job, those people. And not to mention, they're very nice.
I know some of them.
Yeah, they,
So, buddy, we have 2 assistant administrators. Why aren't we following up?
Yeah, I could check with Gary. That is right. They're co-administrators, right? All right.
Is there any update on the crash
I-
program to hire a new town administrator?
They're looking.
working on it.
They had
They're
interviews
looking.
tonight.
Did they have interviews
Interviews.
today? I know they're working on.
Interviews tonight.
So I will, I'll reach out to Mr. Carrero, send him an email asking about an update on the bid.
I don't think he was involved because I think,
He wasn't.
But I think John's point is a good one. That
I get him, again, but
It wasn't, but there's
I
gotta be
think,
records and,
Yeah.
things just
Yeah.
shouldn't fall off the.
Yeah. And he has stepped in on
because
the,
Someone's taken 8 weeks
Yeah.
leave or whatever it is.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, he's stepped in on the request for legal services and the Smith Mill thing, so that's fair. That's a very good point. All right, I will follow up with him. 'Cause I think that's the thing, is we gotta move. Sounds like it's on the cusp. It's been kind of in the doldrums for several years. We really need to get this, we're at a moment where maybe this thing can move forward. Okay.
Nice.
I don't like it when things drag on like that, because sometimes when things drag on like that, they never get completed.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah, right, that's the concern.
Yes.
Okay, on the 2026 needs assessment and plan, we haven't gotten any input, other than what we heard tonight, a little bit. So that was helpful to know about some of the attention that is on the horizon for the cemeteries, stone walls, and those kinds of things. But now that we do have our needs assessment references the town's master plan and open space and recreation plan, housing production plan, and the harbor management plan, and then what information we receive from the historical commission. So we have a new, so as of when we did this last year, the master plan and the open space and rec plan were in their final draft but not adopted form.
Never completed.
But since then, it looks to me like both have been adopted. They're both up on the website and not described as draft and stuff. So we need to do some cross-referencing of those documents to carry forward the statements from those documents, because we basically defer to the towns, those as you know, the guiding documents in terms of what's the town's kind of priorities or values, goals. So I need to go and do some cross-referencing and aligning the language that since we reference those plans, I gotta move their language now into our document for the master plan and for the open space and rec plan. I think it's, overall, there's been no seismic shift in kind of the town's vision and direction that I'm aware of. We haven't decided to, pave everything, or, we haven't decided to turn everything into a pickleball court, so.
Well, pretty close,
There
though.
haven't been any major
Pretty close.
shifts like that I'm aware of.
Not yet.
Not yet. Getting there.
Yeah.
Keep another round of other funds we might get.
Yeah, so in general.
Take it.
Our goals and objectives and strategies are probably not too far off the mark, but would be important to pull that language in. So I can do that, and then for our December meeting, we'll have a final document that'll have that language, and then anything else we want to tweak in our document. So take a look at our goals, objectives, strategies part, which is kind of what the committee, how we see the CPA funds moving forward. The other thing I want to pass out, and I know I'm supposed to give you all of these documents I'm supposed to give to Michelle, but every once in a while I invent another one, so I invented one that I didn't give you. One of the things that the CPA says in terms of annual needs assessment and plan is they use the language a lot of multi-year. And that's not something I've ever been able to get my head around, is what would a multi-year CPA plan look like, since we, we get projects proposed to us, and we recommend them to town meeting, but we couldn't necessarily say that we know that we're gonna spend money on X use or project next year, or 2 years, or 3 years out. So it's always been kind of a little bit of a conundrum about that. But I've been thinking about, well, is there, to be as transparent as possible with Dartmouth residents, having what would the next couple of years look like in the CPA? What can we say about that? So I've been puzzling through, and I wanted to just your thoughts on a way of trying to present this. So, and I've looked at other town plans or CPA plans. Some do kind of do a little bit of projection of revenue. There are instances, and we've talked about this on occasion, where you can make forward commitments. And town meeting approves, we're gonna make $500,000 commitment over for each of the next 3 years for the Open Space Trust or whatever. And you see some of that in towns, that they make ongoing commitments towards projects, and they just know that they're gonna do that, so they can say that. So I tried to fashion, maybe including something like this in our annual plan and needs assessment, that just basically gives kind of as much as we can, which is not much, forecast of the next 3 years of CPA in Dartmouth. So I do have surcharge projections, which is basically taking the actual of a previous fiscal year and increasing it by 2%, and that stays pretty close. That's a pretty accurate, a 2% increase in surcharge revenue. The state match, I took the last 3-year average of the percentage. And so, okay, well, maybe that's one way of projecting what the state match might be. That gets total revenue. We generally hold our administrative expenses at $35,000. Debt service, 20. This is from the debt service schedule I have from the town. I probably should ask Gary to update it for me, but this is the schedule that I have. And then,
Woody, back on that
Yes.
state match, I'm just gonna throw this out there, should we be looking at it a little different rather than look at
yeah,
the average of the last 3 years?
well, right,
You know,
so
for
that,
example,
right,
We know historically, it's declined. So
Yeah.
if you look at the past 10 years, what's the average decline? And let's say it's 6% a year, 3%,
Yeah.
whatever that decline is, shouldn't we be applying that number looking forward to? Because we know it's not going in this direction, it's going in this direction. If we know what that average is, why don't we apply that average?
great question. I mean, I think that's what I want the feedback is like, this is one way
Rather
to
than just say,
this is
well,
one way to
the average is
present it.
33% a year, well,
Right.
I don't know.
Right,
I don't believe
yeah, yeah,
that's gonna happen.
Another possible way to model the decline would be, part of the reason for the decline is that more and more cities and towns have come into.
that's right, Yeah.
Particularly Boston,
yeah,
and so they took a big slice of the pie
yeah,
on day one.
yeah,
And so that's why, cripes, we had over 100% match in the first years, 20 years ago.
mm-hmm,
Or,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can look at that and really,
What's left?
our forecast really is a low percentage and maybe even a dropping percentage. I think it's, and
There aren't-
we're adding communities,
There aren't big communities,
Yeah.
big hungry communities
yeah,
still outside. And
But even prior to Boston, the state was
Squeezing.
wasn't keeping their end of the bargain up. They continue to attack that budget and, not fund it even
Mhm.
close to 100% as they promised when they
Yeah.
implemented the program.
Yeah, I think the CPA
So
just.
you're right, but that's not an excuse. What's happened prior to that, it was a steady decline
Yeah.
from day one. A typical state, they renege on their commitments.
So I can look at that and come up with, what I'm hearing is a more realistic projection of the state match. Okay, I can work on that.
Yeah, I want to dedicate a lot of time. I think just to say it's 33% flat, Alaric, we haven't seen that. There's
Yeah.
it's always
Yeah,
gone in the negative.
yep. All right, I will do that. And then, there's a section, we could have forward commitments, but in our current status is we do not. We do not have any commitments in projects that commit us for out-year kind of obligations. Then it was like, well, could we project, or what do we know about what amount of requests might come in? So in this respect, I just took the last 5 years, I think it was, yeah. I looked at the last 5 fiscal years and how much money have we, on average, across the 5 years, how much money have we committed towards these types of uses? And saying, all right, well, maybe if over a 3-year average, we'll continue to have that kind of average, this is what it would look like.
It's a good starting point.
And these are all just projections, not to say it will. Some years we won't get, some years we won't get anything for open space. The next year we'll get a $700,000 request. Is kind of the way it in reality works. But this is kind of, we don't know what's on the horizon, but if it's,
At the rate they're buying up the open space, there's not gonna be any left.
if there's activity continues the way it has, this is the kind of way the numbers would look. And at the minimum, and this we do know, at the minimum, we will commit at least 10% either to a project or to reserve for each use, because that's required by law. So we know at the minimum we're gonna do this, and these numbers go up because our revenue goes up year to year. And that is held pretty steady with the surcharge revenue. And then what would happen to our fund balances over the next 3 years? What would we project happen to them? So one way of looking at this is, all right, so we are going to either we're going to commit minimally this 10% to each of these uses. And in the case of open space, if our spending continues as it has in the past, we'll probably commit more to open space projects. So, as an example, if on average we're getting $60,000 request for historic preservation, we have to set aside at least 122. So that means there's another 60,000 of revenue that we have to put into the historic reserve because we didn't have a project to commit to. So what will happen with the historic preservation reserve, it will continue to grow over the next 3 years. Again, this is just all projection. Housing, same thing. If we were to assume that the request for housing funds is similar to the last 5 years, over the next 3, then it would be it would average about $105,000 a year, but our minimum set aside is 122 and rising. So there's at least every time, at least another $15,000, $20,000 that goes into the housing reserve in order to meet our 10%. Under this assumption that everything continues on average, we wouldn't be putting in anything more into open space under that kind of approach, because we would always be committing much more in project money to open space. So we'd always hit our 10% minimum, because we'd always, theoretically, we would be committing the $300,000, almost $400,000. So one way of looking at, so what might happen to our reserve balances, they might look something like this. And the unrestricted would climb because the total amount of money that we would project on average to commit to these three uses is still less than the revenue that's coming in. So the extra funds go into unrestricted. So that's kind of what this fund balance thing shows. It's okay, over the next 3 years, if everything was the way it was over the past 5 years, this is what, on average, we would expect commitments to look like, and this is what, if we were on average, this is what would happen to our fund balances. And those numbers the trend will be the same, but the numbers will change as I correct our assumptions about the state match, because our revenues expected revenue will be lower. But those are going to be minor corrections. The trends will be the same. So one idea is to include, here's kind of what the trends look like in the CPA for Dartmouth in the next 3 years. So I'm interested in some feedback about conceptually, does this work? We have to tweak these numbers. We may want to, and we can choose anything we want to do. We may choose that we want to maintain an open space reserve balance of at least of something. And so we can just say that and just put that in here and make all the other adjustments. So none of this is, we have choices to make in how we want to project the next 3 years. But I think this is kind of a way that we can have a quote-unquote multi-year plan and also have the benefit of just giving more information to the public about how the CPA works and what the horizon looks like in the CPA, which, that's not a bad thing. So does it work as a concept?
Does it work as a what?
As a concept? I mean, these numbers need to be worked on.
The only thing I would add is a footnote, and I don't have any problem with your open space concept there, that we don't maintain any balance in all those. But if we're gonna be transparent, if we think somebody's looking at this, and hopefully someone is, and if they have an interest in one of these, and let's say it's historic preservation, and they say, well, that's, there's not a lot there. A footnote that at any time, we have funds from the unrestricted that can be transferred to any one of these.
Yeah, it can be used for any of these things. Yeah, okay.
So I think there should be a note 5, just
Okay.
explaining that, so somebody isn't discouraged to say, oh,
Yeah.
it's not worth me moving ahead.
Yep.
So who is the intended audience of this?
Everybody.
This goes up on our website.
So I would say if also what goes on the website was that really excellent talk through of this that you just gave. Because I think
So
this.
we'll just put a note to DCTV to this meeting. They can listen to the whole thing.
I
But what
didn't
I'm-
get a haircut
is-
today. Let's not
Is
do that.
there a way to make this more into a graphic that would be more engaging and people would more readily understand so that they're more likely to use the funds? Because if I, having not been on the CPC, looked at this, I'd be like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Like, those are numbers. That's just my, I think there's a lot of people that don't even know the fund exists.
Yeah, but I think our website, I think that doesn't, it explains what the CPC is all about. So if they're there, they're probably
Right.
reading that
Right.
part of it first, and then it'll lead them to this part, it leads them to, the applications one, then it'll lead it to this to say, well, if you're interested in doing X, maybe there's a fund available to you. I mean, then one would hope to be sending an email to the CPC type thing. I mean, I think if
Right.
you put a lot more stuff in, I think it may confuse people. If you leave them asking questions, maybe they'll inquire, and then you won't get just the tire kickers. You'll actually have somebody who's actually interested in doing something. If they see it, it shows that they have some interest in it, then they'll go to that next step and actually contact us. That's just me. I mean, when I look at, if you put a lot of information, they're gonna look at it and gonna go, blah, 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 blah. But if they have an interest, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I kinda agree with you, but I think realistically, I mean, how many hits do we have on our CPC site? Does it say? Is there a counter on there?
I don't know if there is a counter on
I
these.
thought we asked them to put a counter on there of all the hits.
And
thought-
I also think with John's recommendation is very important, because if you're looking for funding.
Yeah.
And you say, oh geez, that's not a lot, but if you read that final note that John recommended, you say, well, I am gonna call because
Yeah,
I
I
do
mean-
have unrestricted funds.
Yeah, I think,
Okay.
I think most people, I say, if they're into that, I mean, if they're in there looking at the CPC website anyways, maybe they, once they start poking around again, there's a lot of information on there. And it'll kind of lead them to, either through Michelle or right to, the chairman, as far as what it is. I mean, we'll get the email, right? 'Cause
Right.
you guys, both of you still get the email, right, when it comes in? Both of you get it? Yeah, so. But I agree, I kind of go with that, with John's thing there, that there were
Yeah,
more money
that-
available.
that added.
Yeah, makes sense.
So I wonder if, like, what, Susan, you're saying, if maybe a way is, this might be a place in our plan that then we can have a paragraph to really highlight what these trends mean to us, right? Like there's a enormous historic preservation fund, and at the rate we're going, it will continue to grow. And, and there's a real priority and need for projects to, really take advantage of this fund. Housing, same thing, would like to see more funds invested in housing. But maybe there's something to kind of, so that, like, what am I supposed to get from this by just looking at the chart? I mean, for us, I think we're kind of more knee-deep into it, but maybe providing a little bit of context for the chart and saying, this is what the plan looks like in the next 3 years, and these are the trends that strike us.
Well, I just think if you want more people to access, a bigger diversity of people to access the funds,
Yeah.
the numbers aren't really gonna mean anything to them, right? Except the fact that there's a trend that there's, more historic preservation money available because it's underutilized. Yet, is it something like that would ever go up on social media, that like a cute little graphic would get people interested, like, hey, are you,
But that would, something like that, though, would be through our historical commission, or for the most part. They would probably give the guidance and direction. If I'm a resident and I have a historical thing, I would think first to go to historical and say, hey, I have this, what can I do? I mean, I'm just thinking about it, whatever, I have a monument that I want to save and it's historical, I'm going to go see them. If I have a whatever, I found something in the woods that I want to save, it would be there. I think my first choice would be go to them, and then they would give us guidance and, say, oh yeah, this is a great idea. well, how do I fix it, fund it? Well, I know the place to go to. They would kind of, I think we rely on other town offices and other things to kind of get us to this point here to I mean, again, I'm not against it because more information is better, but I think realistically, historical, if I'm going to see them first on anything. Even though I know this is here, I'm still gonna go to them because that's what they do. At least for historical. The rest of the stuff, open space, maybe I'm gonna go to conservation. I go downstairs to see them, I wanna go see DNRT, Buzzards Bay. Housing, maybe I'll call the Dartmouth Housing Authority if something's going along, something like that, or the planning board. You know, I don't know, whatever, it doesn't make a difference. I mean, whatever you wanna put, it's free, it's just words and graphs.
Well, but, you know, I'm wondering if it would be helpful for us to invite, and this is really terrible, 'cause I never get the communications person.
Magnolia.
Yes.
Magnolia. Well,
Petunia.
yeah.
Nice.
Thank you. If we could invite her to one of our future meetings, she's the communications person for the town. And my wife actually forwarded to me this evening this thing that the town has, I guess, up on their website or put out someplace. They're starting to solicit input around the housing production to help inform the housing production plan. And it's like a click on for a survey. I haven't done it yet, but I will. But it's an interesting kind of lively kind of page says a little bit about the housing production plan, and you have this thing we can click on to provide, answer a survey questions. It goes out, you know, it's anybody can. So maybe that would be really helpful in ways that she is already working on some aspects of our website. So she's working on the to do the GIS map. So when you go on our website, you can see where all of our projects are and by what type, and you could click on it and it'll tell you a little bit of information about the project. So she's working on that aspect. I've talked to Chris Sewell about doing a link from our site, our webpage, to the historic inventory that is essentially, that is ours. We pay for it, but it's kept by the Historical Commission because they have the most immediate use for that information. But maybe there's something she can do that's going to help us promote the CPA and broaden the access. I'd be happy to invite her to one of our meetings, see what she can do.
I just think if you're not already keyed into town hall and there's like a very big percentage of people in the town that aren't plugged into town hall, you don't know about
Yeah.
the CPC
Fair enough,
or
yeah.
CPA funds. And don't, you know, I would just think we'd want to engage the community a bit more. So I would be very much into having Magnolia come.
Yeah, and we need to find some way, you know, because just sending out, like, come and tell us, give us your reaction to our plan and stuff
It doesn't work.
It doesn't.
It doesn't
Really
work.
does not excite anybody.
It
So-
doesn't work for my business. It doesn't work for the nonprofit I run. You have to go out and engage people. If you want input, you can't just expect people to show up at
Yeah.
your door and give you input. You actually have to go after it these days.
Shame.
Just look at our request for needs assessment every year.
Yeah. This,
We never get input back.
Yeah, if we want input, we have to seek it.
We will.
yeah. All right, good. Well, I will invite her, because I think she may have some ideas, and she's a resource that could do some of these things that I don't, you know, I'm not sure if I feel like I'd be the most competent to how to do that, but when I see it, you know, it makes me want to engage in
You
things
need
like
a, you need a Gen Xer to take care of that for you,
Yeah.
not a boomer.
I mean, just to back up a step, you know, I think the message that I'd get out of looking at these projections of fund balances for the three earmarked buckets is not that there's this much in the bucket for historic preservation,
Yeah.
housing, or open space, but that for, regardless of what kind of project you might have, for just about any of them, there's $2 million, right? Between the unallocated and the allocated to one purpose or another. So, I mean, the sky, for practical purposes, the sky's the limit. The limiting thing is the ambition that various proponents might have for a project, whether it be housing or preservation or open space. And so, looking at the earmark for their specific purposes is misleading, because there's that big unallocated thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah.
That, I think is the more important message from the bottom of this table.
Yeah, I don't know what reserve balances look like in other towns and stuff, but I wouldn't imagine we're the only one who's, looking at these balances and wanting to kind of get ahead of, not letting them grow to astronomical amounts, because the real benefit and whole purpose of this is to this CPA have a real tangible benefit to the town residents. That means it's got to translate into projects. Then it doesn't do a lot of benefit to have it in a reserve. So hopefully, we can.
What's the annual commitment to, are we, I know it's not mortgages, what's the term in government when we borrow money? Do we have any outstanding balances? Don't we have,
Debt service?
debt?
Yeah, we have a little bit, which it's dropping precipitously.
So should there be a line item?
Oh, yeah, it's up here in that, just,
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Such a small number, you, John, you just went right over it.
yeah.
May I ask a question about, and it doesn't really pertain to this, but now that we're talking about housing, and Chris Vitale was, we were gonna do something for, if somebody needs windows and roofs, and we were gonna raise that limit, I think, to $40,000. And we were gonna get some kind of, as Susan mentioned, some kind of outreach to maybe Coastline Elderly Services.
Right.
Do you know where we are with that?
Last I heard, and that's been a couple of months, the town council was reviewing all the forms and documents that the program uses to make sure that they indeed align with the CPA purposes, because it had been a number of years since they've looked at them. But I haven't heard that it's come out of the review and back
Right.
to an active program.
Well, my concern
Yeah.
is, and I've been saying this from day one, is that, now winter's almost upon us, and if the elderly people out there need a roof or a furnace, we should have this done already. That's
can
my
get it.
feeling.
It's right near the dog park.
You can get an update.
It is right near the dog park.
Yeah.
This is going on, we started talking about this in the springtime.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'll get an update. Yeah.
and, by the time somebody applies and everything, we're gonna be February and March. They don't have heat, or they need heat, or windows, or a roof. It's concerning to me for the elderly.
If anybody.
Well, anybody, but especially the elderly, because sometimes they're afraid to,
All right, let me reach out
Thank
to
you.
get an update on that. Okay, so we'll come.
One more thing, I
Yeah.
don't know why it takes so long for town council to review all this. If you've gotten these documents from the town park, or
Yeah.
the dog park, or for the housing, why is it taking 2 or 3 months? Shouldn't be taking 2 or 3 months. My opinion only.
I think that's more of an administration, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I don't know this to be, I'm
Right.
assuming this to be true. I don't think council sets the priorities. He's given the priorities. So our gripe should be with the people setting the priorities,
Fine.
which is
Mhm.
the
Administrators.
administration.
Yeah, I
Is what
agree.
our gripe should be.
I don't care who's,
What priority we want. I mean, when we make a request, we should say what
Yeah.
our priority, we
Yeah.
need this
Mhm.
money.
Yeah, generally what I do is I give a date, exactly.
But
Okay.
it's,
Asking for
it's,
things, yeah.
the
Right.
request is through the administration.
right, to town council,
know,
yeah.
I don't wanna throw anything under the bus,
No,
but
no.
it may not be his
Yeah,
fault.
yeah, because
If
I think
he's
we've
not-
sent stuff to him, he's answered pretty quickly on
Yeah.
that part. I think, again, I kind of agree with John, thinking about it, yeah, I think it's
Then-
down the hall, I think is the problem.
I misspoke, all I.
No, 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 I
No,
just
no,
think-
but all I care about is getting this done to the
Yeah, no,
people who need
Oh,
it.
It's frustrating.
I agree. I think we
Mhm.
need to
Yeah, gotta push somebody.
Administration a little bit and, say, hey,
Paternity leave, paternity leave.
Well, if it's not a priority for them, then it just the way it is. I mean, let's be real, you know,
But you know, people have to look out for people that are in need. And some of these people, and I've been talking about this for a long time, like over 55 housing and planning, I've been talking about all this. It's gotta be done. If you know, you can talk all day, but you gotta get it done. Sorry to digress.
It's all right, it's,
put a soapbox away.
I did. I stepped down.
I do
You
want
are
to,
fresh tonight.
Yeah,
Yes.
we had a good meeting, that's why.
yeah, I do want to move us on. But your point's well taken.
Thank you.
The historic building inventory, the Historical Commission is, Mr. Mahood?
Who?
Mahold, has said they're interested in doing some additional Form Bs. In his email to me, he said it would be less than $10,000. So, and this is again a continuation of properties. It sounds like they have a strategy for trying to be a little bit more balanced about where these properties are that they're gonna add to the historic inventory. We can, you know, we are allowed to use administrative funds for that. We've done that in the past. A couple of things, we had sent out, I think as part of this, the last MOU that we had with Historical Commission. So that expired June 30th of this year. So we will need to do another MOU with the Historical Commission. And it may be, maybe there's a way of drafting this so that it can be a little bit more, have more longevity. So I may attempt to do that and bring that back to us in the sense of, I think the roles and responsibilities are the same. The inventory is purchased, it's our administrative money, so the CPC is purchasing this inventory. And you see in this document, we are delegating some things to the Historical Commission by virtue of their expertise, and they are the likely place where people go. So they're to help us find the company to do it. They are the ones to represent us in working with the company, because they know if they better know that the Form Bs are of a quality that is expected. And then they are also the holder of the inventory. But these are all delegated responsibilities, delegated by the CPC, since it is our money that purchased this.
They haven't been in front of us to talk about this, it's been over a year, right?
It's been a while.
How about bringing them back? I've got a question for them. I know every year, as time goes on, there's more and more houses coming online because they're getting older.
Yeah.
I'm just curious to see what their priority is. Are they focusing on the real old ones, like the
Yeah.
17, 16, 1800 first, and not something that's 1919, you know, that's, because what's the threshold, 75 year, 100 year? What's? 75 years. So I know a lot of houses in Bliss Corner that are 75 years old, but I wouldn't consider them historical at this point in time. That's just my question. Are they?
They are by definition.
But I get that, but I'm saying is, if we're spending money to, I'd rather like categorize the ones that are, again, the non-historical person that I am, the ones that like start with 18 or even 17
Right.
on their birth date, not the ones that are 1919.
So
I live
what-
in a house that's 1919,
Yeah.
you're not putting a plaque on my house. But,
So we can have them, yeah, so that would be.
I'm just curious to see, I mean, I'm not gonna, I won't tell them what to do, but I'm just curious to see, is that the primary focus, not
Right.
something that, because when you say you're branching out in town, there's a lot of them out there. I mean, I think there are some homes that may be still historical, because nothing's been changed, but I think if we're gonna spend that type of money, I think I'd like to see the ones that are decaying, the ones that we're gonna lose, opposed to the ones that we know that'll still be there in 10 years.
Yeah, so, we can't have a, I don't wanna do
No, I'm
a
just, again,
dialogue.
just tossing it out there for you to show up, and you can tell me that I'm wrong, I'm okay with it, but.
Okay, we don't,
All right.
don't invite Sue to have a dialogue
No.
with you, because the chairs say we're not gonna have a dialogue.
All right,
Okay.
sorry, Sue.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. What I'd like to do is, basically take this MOU with the Historical Commission and put in just a section that allows for this document to kind of span a greater period of time. But basically, a section that would be that spell out on those occasions where there were additional, even, additional Form Bs to be done, we would be informed, just work that out, so we wouldn't have an MOU for every single time we do a batch of Form Bs, since this does come up over time.
If you wrote something up that this MOU would automatically re-up every year on this date,
You mean renew
Renew.
or amend?
yeah, on this date, unless the CPC objects to otherwise.
Yeah, and make it less tied to a specific, but something like, if there are additional forms, we would get an estimate, and then the committee would approve the fund, something like that, so you wouldn't have a dollar amount in here. So I'm gonna do that, so this is a document that can live for a long time.
To the point where it becomes historical.
Yes, it will become historical.
Oh, jeez.
And then I think it'll be important to have the link from our website to the inventory, because the inventory is something that was purchased by the CPC. And we don't want to lose sight of that, or we run afoul of using our administrative money appropriately.
Good point.
This is information that enables us and the community to identify historically significant buildings. We have a big reserve for historic preservation projects. This is the kind of information that people could use to figure out where where are some of the properties where maybe we could spend this money that need to be preserved, that have a priority, kind of thing. Okay, so I will work on that. And then I'll let the DHC chair know.
Can I?
Yes.
This is totally sidetracked, but why don't we have something similar with the Ag Commission for inventorying farms in town on a regular basis?
It's, I think it's possible. I'll look at, hold on a sec.
I think we talked about it.
Well, we want to work on putting a fund together.
No, we talked about the farms, too, the inventory. I'm pretty sure we did too.
I mean, it was done a long time ago,
Right.
but.
It was
would
earlier
be-
this year we talked about that.
Thank you, we did talk
Mm-hmm.
about it, because we should know that.
I think it was the same time when
Yes,
she was gonna come on board.
That's right.
As that alternate person. It was right around that time, because somebody in the audience brought that up.
yes.
if I
We
recall
did
correctly.
talk about that.
And I think the same thing happened. I think there was a question whether or not it would have to be, I don't think it could be administrative. I think we'd have to have, like, funds allocated for that.
This
Yes.
wasn't done through the request of the CPC, the request came from the Historic Commission. So, in my opinion, the request should come from the Ag Commission. Why aren't we doing something like this? And push it and take the lead.
But I think, John, when the Ag Commission came before us, this was one of the things we talked about, because I think everybody should know. I know there's a list of
Talking
towns.
about and taking the lead is two
Well, I
different
know.
things.
Yeah,
You know, you can talk all you want,
I think
but-
that meeting there is when they talked about that open seat that
Right.
we, to there, and I think that was
Yes.
part of the discussion. Well, maybe we could categorize, the farms and try to
Right.
get that.
And
And
what they
that's,
pro-
and
and
that's
what
where it
they-
ended up. That's
What they
what,
produce, remember?
yep, what they produced, what each
Yes,
farm was
I
producing, so we
remember all
kinda get an
that, yep.
idea.
My memory's not that bad,
No,
John.
no,
I do remember
no,
that.
I do remember that. No, listen, I can remember that. Because we had a full house. Matter of fact, we had a bunch of
Yes,
we had a bunch of farmers in here.
farmers here.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think it was, I know, I remember seeing out, Manley's
Fred
kid.
Dabney,
Yeah,
Manley,
Dabney's always
yeah.
here. But I think it was Manley, because they were talking about
Yeah.
Alderbrook. I know,
I
I
even
know.
think Andy Burns came.
Yeah. And what was the one, the farm,
Yeah.
garlic, right? Was that the thing too we talked about? Farm out in the end that makes that produces garlic or something?
Dartmouth?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
thought,
they-
I think, yeah, it's like, I had to go back to the language that the Department of Revenue, they're very specific, so I'm not sure if we could do that, because when they look at the allowable uses for CPC administrative expenditures, it includes things like administrative expenses and stuff like that. But it also includes feasibility studies, assessments, appraisals, or preliminary plans related to a project under consideration by the CPC. And then it allows for funding for historic resource or affordable housing inventories, or historic preservation plans, or affordable housing plans, or similar plans. So I'm not sure, they're so specific
Come under
there.
administration, administrative expenses.
No, but then it would be a project, you have to, it would be certainly could be requested
Yes.
to do like the housing production plan, do.
most
like
of our farms are more than 100 years old.
A survey of the, I think that's possible.
Could it fall under the assessment, or the assessment has to be for a project that's been?
It says here is assessment for projects that be under consideration by the CPC.
I think maybe bring it back to your group, because somebody's jumping in the audience. I think maybe bring it back to your group and figure out.
No, there was a plan of all the farms, because at that time, somebody did mention to us that they had a plan, but they hadn't renewed it, and that person was gonna work on it.
And the money was through town meeting, they gave them X amount of, was that the one for the town meeting, put money out there, and then they, that was
No.
another,
Acquisition.
No,
that was
no.
another one, all right,
Yeah,
okay.
no.
Disregard. I knew there was some,
No, but there used to be a list of all the farms
Yeah.
and what they produced.
it was that night that they were all here, and I think
Right.
there was a lot of information that got thrown at us. And that's something that,
But we should know about all the farms and the farmers.
well, that would be a good project.
It would be maybe that's something that the Ag Commission could get an intern to work on.
That Sue could talk about it next time, put it
Next
on the
time.
agenda.
Next
Sue,
time.
I don't want to get in trouble, can't talk to you.
Yeah, don't,
No, we're not talking to them.
okay.
I'm just
I wish I
saying,
had telepathy right now.
if Sue was in the 20th century, she'd be texting her.
So I'll let him know that, here's a new draft of the MOU.
Yeah.
That covers all the same stuff, but is written to be more flexible, over a period of time. And that we'd need he give me in writing his estimate of how many properties and the total, their estimated cost. And invite him back to a meeting here, and then some of, Joe, your questions can be asked.
And you're making a note about the link, right, to the website?
Yes, yep, yep. Okay, project updates. We have the Greenway MOU that is ready to be signed by me, I think. We have signed the Dias dinghy thing. Okay, perfect, that's all signed. The dinghy improvement MOU is executed, but I do not have, we do not have any of the other MOUs. So, they got back to Michelle, but when I came by to look at them, the Exhibit A's, which is your schedule of drawdown, were blank, they had not been completed, so.
I thought kickoff was October.
Hmm?
I thought they were supposed to start this in October. No?
Start,
The project in October,
which one?
down the harbor, dredging and all that.
I don't know about the dredging and stuff, but we don't have a signed MOU for that
Okay.
one.
All right, I'm no curious.
I do
I
think
no, they were,
The Dias Landing expansion is probably ready to roll now, in terms of.
well, it's all part of the same, the way they were talking, everything was gonna kind of click together to try to get done before the next season.
Yeah, but we don't have the other 4 MOUs
Okay.
from the town. So,
It's gotta be.
they're still pending, they need to do the Exhibit A's before they can be signed. Okay, and then in terms of status reports, do we have it?
Oh, yeah. Did you see that you saw all of these are down at Pathways, they gave a final report?
Oh,
I sent
okay.
that to you.
Yep, we do have from the Heritage Trail. They described as a final report, though I had to write back and said I really couldn't. I was diplomatic, I think. I usually try to be diplomatic, but it couldn't be accepted as a final report because they weren't done, basically. So I said they'll have to continue to keep updating us on the project. The Pathways Committee has gotten the project all the way to the point of the signs marking the bike trail route
Right.
need to be installed. And so there's a bunch of them, I don't know, 30, 60, there's a lot of signs. See if he has the number in here. But their understanding was that they have 35. Their understanding was that the DPW was to okay, yeah, I think there's a bunch of signs, it could be as many as 60. The DPW was to install them, but the DPW that's been delayed because the DPW has indicated they don't have the person power to install the signs. There is no money in the budget to subcontract the installation of the signs, and I'm not even sure if the town would agree to a subcontract. I'm not sure. So I asked if there's anything we could do of any assistance, but the final payment couldn't be released for this project until all the signs are up. And we would still need at least a quarterly update from the Pathways Committee until all the signs are up. Not heard back from them, I think, since I wrote that. But that's where that stands. So it's kind of stuck with the DPW. They are inviting the DPW to participate on the Pathways Committee, or I think maybe they recently do, so. I think one thing it could do is reach out, if people think that's fine, reach out on behalf of the CPC and to the DPW, Mr. Barber, and say, can you tell us more about what you're able to do so this project can be finished. We understand it's in your hands.
Well, I would imagine that they got commitment from the DPW.
That was-
before-
Yeah, that was part of
Before.
their budget,
you know,
right,
sought the funds,
yeah.
you know, stuff happens and, you know, they don't have the manpower now, so the question could be, you've committed to this, when do
Yeah.
you think you can follow through
Yeah.
with your commitment?
I know that their sign guy just retired, so I can tell you that they don't have a sign guy right now.
We're a little short-handed too.
No, I get it,
Yeah.
it's just.
Yeah.
Like
No,
your
they-
rate job.
Have some kind
Yeah,
of
this sign guy of 30-something years
when you
just
think,
left.
Well, folks are fine, I can reach out to Mr. Barber and try to get a sense of when this can move forward, that we understand that it's in the hands of the DPW and things are stalled. And,
I can't imagine there's a huge learning curve for a sign guy.
Surprisingly enough, you'd be shocked. They have to follow the federal code, so
No,
there
I
is,
understand that, but I, you know, the learning curve can't
I
be.
think it's been about a month or so. I don't think they've hired anybody to replace him.
Oh, having a vacant job does wonderful, wonderful things for your budget.
No, they'll fill it, but just, I don't think they're looking for a person who's,
Experienced.
yeah.
So
It's a big
we've
responsibility.
heard about the dog park. We have the update on the rehab loan program, which is it's still with the town council to update the loan contract documents, and so we're gonna check on that. And we have an update on the housing trust, which is it too is on hold. The program has a budget of $494,221.86. It said, as a result of instability in the housing market, the program was paused in 2023. To address rising home mortgage rates and home sales prices, the program's terms and conditions will need to be updated to ensure the program can benefit residents as intended. A meeting will be scheduled with the town's Affordable Housing Trust to discuss bringing on a consultant to redevelop the program's structure.
I'm not saying anything.
And then we have Partners in Housing, which is, they are under construction.
Yeah.
And the Cultural Center, all the plans are drawn and ready to present to the Select Board on November 4th. It has been, we have a theme today. Now, I realize.
November 4th.
Yeah. So the challenges and barriers encountered, that's one of the things we ask people to address. It has been difficult getting documents needed in a timely manner from the town.
Is this where I insert Shaka?
Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah.
So we do have a theme.
I see a patent
No
development.
matter how many assistants they get, they just can't keep up, can they?
So those are the updates we have. The other thing we have to do is, there's a couple of projects that are active that we need to take up motions to extend contracts, the dog park being one. We extended the contract, the MOU for the dog park, which will expire December 1st of this year.
You want to extend it to June?
Yes. if-
Motion to extend dog park to June 30th of 2025.
Second.
Any other discussion? And then hopefully, that'll keep us
Pending
checking in
documents.
on- All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that's unanimous. The Dias Marina expansion, which is just starting to get underway, but the MOU expires in November, so,
Motion to June 30th of '25.
a second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, unanimous. And the Heritage Trail, which we just talked about, still needs to get their signs up. And so, a motion to extend their MOU to June 30th, 2025.
Motion.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No? And the Dartmouth Cultural Center, their 1 year expires in December, and they are just getting underway. And so, if a motion to extend to June 30th.
So moved.
Second.
Second, and any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So one of the things I'm doing, as you can tell, is just trying to line these up so that most of these actions will be around the same period of time. So June 30th or around January. And so these projects that we have active will start to kind of cluster around those, so we can just do this in one kind of shot. It's good to keep them on 1 year, I think, because if anything becomes a real, fingers crossed, we've never encountered a project that is like on the ropes or has strayed from its mission. But by having 1 year terms, we know at least there's always a date where we can come to terms with, whether this project is real or is still in good standing. But fortunately, we've never had to really take that up. Agricultural Preservation Fund Working Group. I heard back, we have 2 reps from, I think, Ag Trust. Yep, Ag Trust, and we're gonna get someone from Ag Commission, and then we will start meeting. I checked with Mr. Vitale, and we'll follow the open meeting law. So the working group, the agenda will be posted and times and stuff like that. But that's great, and we'll kind of get off the ground and really try to work out, so what would a CPA funded Ag Trust kind of look like? And update on the open space preservation process. This is all about the conservation restriction. So we heard back from Brian Cruz, and he essentially endorsed kind of what we had looked at, and I summarized about how the CR process would work when we were acquiring. So the key thing that's different from historically how we've done some projects is the town must always have a direct real property interest in these transactions, both for recreation and for any kind of open space. And that's either by, like, the Pascomansit Water Project, just acquiring land outright. They own it. And so CPA funds will help purchase that property outright. Or the town exercises its real property interest by holding a conservation restriction on a property. So a DNRT might purchase something and then sell to the town the conservation restriction, which means then the property will not be developed, et cetera, et cetera. So the town is either going to hold the restriction or they have the option to do a jointly hold it with a private entity. So I met with Mr. Garrett to say, what's the next step? how do we kind of nail down this process? Because we need to avoid projects of this magnitude and this kind of money that the open space is almost always falling apart after town meeting has approved it. You know, our integrity is to take things to town meeting that are solid, with all the information we have, as solid as we know. One, we know they're eligible, so we don't have that problem. And they're feasible, and the people sponsoring it can pull it off. So one of the things we can't have is after town meeting to have I don't have anybody to hold the restriction kind of thing fall apart. And then everything's dead in the water. So my point to Mr. Garrett was a sponsor needs to have that kind of, all that knowledge up front. You know, so if I'm going to buy if I'm DNRT, I'm going to buy a piece of land, I need to know the town is going to hold that restriction. Or if the town is going to do it with somebody, that somebody is going to do it. And if that somebody needs money, an endowment, that's okay. It's just they have to apply to us for the endowment fund. So all that stuff has to be kind of like straightened out before we go to town meeting.
And this is all as a result of that new attorney at the state.
Yeah, who in the past,
So everything in the past we've done correctly,
well,
with the existing conditions.
it was done, the state understood what we were doing and was okay with it. Letter of the law, you know, I think somebody kind of traced things and said, well, I can't draw a hard line to the town's hands on this. This was the Russell Mills one in which DNRT purchased the property, Buzzards Bay held the restriction, and the town purchased provided the value of the restriction. And so the state was like, we can't draw a hard line to the town. We know that we've approved that in the past, but we won't do that in the future. And Brian was very good, Brian Cruz, about saying, well, this is way out of the barn. And they said, okay, but you can't do it that way again. So this is just getting ourselves in line. Mr. Garrett is concerned about capacity. And how many restrictions can the Conservation Commission hold and do the due diligence to monitor? So he's concerned about capacity. I would express my concern that we don't find a barrier to being able to fund future projects because we can't solve this part of it. So one of the things we're going to look at is, and he's definitely supportive of the work. He's just a little concerned about what the volume might be over time, given what they already have to monitor. The next step is we're going to have a meeting with the DNRT, Buzzards Bay, and the Trust for Public Land, and just to test the waters with them, that are they willing and able to jointly, to hold conservation restrictions for CPA-funded acquisitions in Dartmouth? Can they do that? Would they be willing to jointly hold it with the town? Because if they all say no, then we have, the first problem we have is who would do it. So, but if.
What about the trustees for reservation?
Yeah, they're the TPL now,
Oh,
they're
okay.
Trustees for Public Land.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So we want to sit down with them and just make sure that they're willing partners if that was the way this would go.
And there's no funding source, say, all right, I'm going back to the town, where he says he doesn't have the personnel to it. Well, if the town holds a conservation restriction, could the town subcontract out to an entity to review those, whatever they're supposed to do once a year, for argument's sake, if they're not capable? And that could that be funded through CPC as a continual reoccurring?
I'm going to ask about, right, thank you. That was the other thing. I'm going to ask about that in terms of what's allowable. CPCs have, I believe, paid for housing people, and I have to research that. I think they have paid in some towns for housing people. Now, it may come under in the eligible uses, housing allows for CPA funds to be used for what's called support. You can't do that in the other. The support is the language that's only used in housing and not in the other, not in historic preservation or open space. Those are, create, acquire, rehabilitate, preserve, those are the operative words for everything else. Housing is all that plus support, which is why you can do things like the home loan,
Okay.
the
Yeah.
home rehab loan thing. Or you could subsidize, you do rental assistance with CPA funds, because it's considered support. Even, you haven't created anything, you haven't acquired it, but it's support. And it's for income
You
eligible.
could throw that under the other form there, the, jeez, I forgot, the one we give into, for historical, for the 10,000. What's that fee?
Yeah,
Administrative. We could increase the administrative portion of that, X, in order to hire
Right, so-
somebody to
Yeah.
help conservation out, to cover whatever they can't do.
Yeah, so that's the question.
Or I would say what we already have, anything in the
Right.
future.
Yeah.
That we would hire somebody. That way, we're not gonna
Yeah.
restrict any type of open space by, they can hold it, but through the administrative cost, we'd be responsible for the monitoring, if that makes sense.
Yes, I think it's a possibility.
Okay, all right.
It may run afoul of, you can't use CPA funds to what they call supplant operating funds. So, towns can't take advantage of CPA funds to do something they otherwise were going to fund in their budget, but now they won't.
So
it's a little tricky.
So if the conservation said effective immediately at this date forward, we will no longer accept that unless there was an outside funding source to allow somebody else to, I'm sure there's
I don't know,
verbiage.
yeah, but that's,
Yeah,
yeah.
but
I'm
we
gonna
could send
see
it, we could send it to the administrative and we'll get an answer in about a year.
Yeah, so but I'm gonna see if there's any way is it at all possible whether the CPA could directly fund
Yeah.
for the monitoring of these projects.
Because I think that's where we're gonna run into a problem. I even think these other groups, I think that's where it is. I think everybody's digging into the same pockets of the same people to try to get funds. And I think this is where, at least in the short term for the next few years, I think that we're gonna see that till things straighten out. Hopefully.
So, and then after that meeting, it will be getting on the Conservation Commission's agenda later in December, I think, to basically say, here's, they've seen the document, Kyle's brought it forward to them, but then, talk to them about, so I think the way this needs to work is sponsors for a project would need to have some letter from the Conservation Commission saying they're gonna hold this restriction, or they're gonna hold it jointly, and if they say we're gonna hold it jointly with DNRT, then, we're gonna wanna see, before we go to town meeting, we're gonna wanna see DNRT says, yeah, we're gonna do it, but, we're gonna need, X amount of money to cover our costs over the next 10, 15 years of monitoring. So all that's gotta kinda happen up front, in my view. So idea is to go to Conservation Commission and say that. One of the questions, Mark had is, well, if it doesn't all come together before the January project deadline, would the CPC consider not accepting open space and recreation proposals in January until this stuff got worked out? So I don't, that's something for us to think about. It doesn't mean things can't get worked out. They'd have to get worked out before town meeting. And so, you know, we could give it time to work out, and if it doesn't, pull an article at the last minute. So theoretically, there's between now and the first week of June for something to get worked out. So I'm not sure, you know, having thought after talking with Mark, I'm not sure if I would necessarily recommend that that's something we necessarily had to do, but I wanted to be, you know, bring that forward and what you all thought.
Well, if somebody
At
came
this
in and applied
stage.
for it, that would put more pressure on that group to come up with an answer instead of kicking the can down the road, right? If somebody came in with a proposal that was legit, and that all we're waiting on was somebody from conservation or whomever, that would force the group to kind of make a decision. You know, if there's nothing there, we see what happens when there's nothing going on. Things have a tendency of getting stretched out further along, so I would be against that. If somebody came here with a viable plan to do something, why wouldn't we accept it and look at it? That's just me.
No, I agree.
Me too,
You know.
I agree too.
Okay.
Delay any project.
Yeah,
Right.
we're not gonna, it's not that person's fault, or the
Right,
people, again, I get what's going on, because you would like not to have any type of pressure on you when you're doing it, but sometimes people work better under pressure, come up with a solution. You know,
Okay.
we just kick the can down the road too many times with things.
All right. Well, that's what I have for the next meeting. We'll get more, I think we'll include more of an update on the webpage and where things stand. I'll talk to Magnolia then. We'll have the final version of the needs assessment to look at. We need to act on that so we can post it up on our webpage. And we'll have more from the Historical Commission on moving forward on the Form Bs. MOU that will work, and dollar amount, and how much is needed from the administrative fund. Try to tackle all that December, and maybe even like fit in a Christmas cookie or two.
I might be able to.
Your wife making
Fit in
it?
a Christmas
Your wife
cookie,
gonna make
'cause
it?
It's gonna be like, you know, only a couple weeks before Christmas.
I think, if I recall, those oatmeals?
But we'll see about that. No pressure.
Be
Oh,
nice to-
no,
be nice.
we think he should make it.
All right.
No,
He's
no, she's
taken-
not, listen, he's not making it,
he's-
Gretchen's making it, we know
He's
that.
taken the cooking classes.
No, Gretchen's making it. I'll
She
put my,
makes a far better
I'll
cookie.
I'll put my, listen, we gotta put our foot down,
Ever
yeah,
make.
yeah.
I might surprise
We're talking about
you.
fruits and vegetables, so we'll bring them, but let Gretchen make the cookies.
Might surprise you. You can do a taste test. You
That's
can
right.
Figure out which one Gretchen made, which one
That's
I made.
right, see, he's cooking, he's taking the
All right.
classes.
Next meeting gonna be the 10th?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, motion to.
Motion.
Second.
Second. All right. Thank you all so much. Sorry we ran a little late tonight.